Here I am at Legion Park in Everett, and a very sacred place for me. This special tree back here has some significance. Those who know me know a little bit about it. Mindy and I are on a little adventure today. Interestingly enough, I did not realize, it's been a couple weeks since I've done a video for this channel, and I've got a number of people been hitting me up wanting to know when the next video is coming out. I didn't realize there was going to be so many people engaged in this, but it's thrilling that that's the case, and people are engaging with all kinds of different private messaging dialogue with me and getting together for all kinds of things. But I wanted to give a little explanation as to why I went MIA for a minute. And I had a very interesting weekend a couple weeks ago, and in my own spiritual journey, in my own ascension process, I got to a point where as I'm diving deeper and getting into more involved things within myself, I got to the point where I realized it was time to dig into early childhood trauma. And in my upbringing, I had some things go on that I was kind of curious about, were those traumatic events or not, but I didn't have a conscious memory about them because I was very little, so I just set them aside. So as those memories have been now recovered and I've gone through them, I'll share with in a little bit. What ended up happening is I had a frequency alignment with many people in my spiritual family, a whole bunch of people I'm connected with very closely, and within literally 1 minute, and then throughout the next 10 days or so from my weekend encounter into early childhood trauma therapy, I guess you might call it if you want to label it something, a number of women have come into my life, or that are in my life have come to me expressing similar things in their early childhood as well that were traumatic events, and they're coming to me for healing. So I've been very busy, all of us engaging in each other's lives, sharing and loving and healing each other, and I'm learning so much about all this. I'll be sharing a lot of this forthcoming, but that's kept me busy. So I don't have time to go on a hike in the mountains today, but here we are. The Seattle fall is here, summer's over, and the sunny days might be gone for about 8 months. So I may not be going up in the mountains as much because it's kind of freaking cold and wet. We might be going and sitting in bars and having cocktails and around a fire. We'll see how it goes. But we're headed.
Sprite for me.
Sprite, yeah. Baby on board. Are we? What's that place? Spencer Park? Is that where we're headed today? So we're gonna go check that out and see what's happening over there. Early childhood trauma. I think I'm just going to tell a little bit of my own story on this one. Become a little bit vulnerable here. So I've learned that with early childhood trauma and really all of our past experiences, we're continually getting programmed and conditioned to create behavior that we exhibit in our adult lives and the rest of our lives. And so we're constantly navigating through these things, and so it's interesting to go back to the beginning of maybe our current incarnation here and dig up some things. And so when I was 18 months old, I had a traumatic experience where as a toddler, I pulled an entire percolator of coffee over on myself. And I was told this story all growing up. I don't have any conscious memory of it. So because I've never had the conscious memory, I've never given it any attention. I've always just thought it was something, especially at 18 months old, that I didn't need to give any significance to. It was just an accident, and didn't really think too much of it. I've got a huge scar on my shoulder and my arm here from that. 3rd-degree burns that been there my whole life. But so as I walked through this meditative experience with a friend of mine that guided me through it 3 weeks ago, I was able to recall the body memory of this event, because it's all there at the cellular level and all in my brain too. Even at 18 months old, there's a memory of all this stuff. So it's traumatic enough, obviously it is. So what happened is, at 18 months old, I was toddling around the kitchen, and I pulled myself up in front of the kitchen counter. There was an electrical cord coming down, and as I was attempting to kind of pull myself up with that, well, it's plugged into an entire percolator of coffee boiling away on the countertop. and I ended up pulling that whole percolator, which is, I don't know, 3 or 4 gallons, couple gallons, I don't know how much is in that, a lot. One of the big ones, and I pulled it over on myself and completely scalding my body, head to toe, every inch of my body's cooking away. The grounds landed on my shoulder and my arm, which just kept searing into my skin. And so as I was walking through this healing process and recalling it, my first vantage point was to put myself in my mother's shoes and what she saw. She comes running around the corner, and one of my older sisters was there too, and she came around and saw me laying there, and I'm covered in boiling water and coffee, and the percolator's laying there empty on the floor next to me. So the first thing that came to me is what was my mother going through when she came around the corner and saw that, and to see her little 18-month-old boy screaming in terror. And then kind of shift into what was I experiencing then, and putting myself in the mindset of a little boy. At 18 months old, what do you know? You don't really know much. My entire world was my 3 sisters, our little home, my parents, a few of their friends that came around and helped babysit and whatnot all the time. No knowledge of anything outside of that. And when, difficult things would have come up at that early life stage and you want comforted, well, the way you get comforted is to be held and snuggled and all of that. Your parents or whoever makes you feel safe. So I'm experiencing trauma, head to toe. All I know is everything in my body hurts. Every inch of my body hurts. My mom's freaking out. So she takes me and puts me in the bathtub and runs, soaks me in cold water to try to ease the pain and do what she can do. And my dad was a deputy sheriff at the time, and we lived in Leadville, Colorado. So it's a very high mountain town. I think the town is in a valley at a 9,000-foot elevation. So it's very remote, little old mining town. And so he came home. They put me in the back seat of the squad car, of all things. So I'm sure I'm not bandaged or had much on my skin to help heal the pain or ease the pain. So an hour-and-a-half drive in the squad car with the red lights going over the mountains into Colorado Springs, where was the nearest trauma center of some sort. So I was brought there. You following me here? An hour-and-a-half in the car screaming with my skin, melting. And my mom holding me, and no telling what she went through. All the things you can conceive, I'm sure, as a young mother, was as traumatic as anything. And I get to the hospital, and they do all the treatment and whatnot to me. And then, as my older sister recounts too, she helped me with this as well. And she has some actual conscious memories of it. So I put myself in, my family's shoes, and there I am, this little boy, 18 months old. I'm wrapped like a mummy, head to toe. And the only thing that's not covered with bandages are my little eye holes. So imagine that sight. Then the next thing I was guided to do is to put myself back into my shoes as the 18-month-old boy. I'm a baby. Everything hurts from head to toe. No one can comfort me. I'm covered in bandages. They won't let my mom or anybody touch my skin. And I remember her telling me when I was little growing up, as I was originally told this story, she could put a cold washcloth on my lips, or a wet washcloth, just to give me a little bit of comfort on my lips. And that was all she could do. So not understanding what's going on at 18 months old, no idea how to process any of this. I'm just experiencing the trauma of it and the inability to be comforted and nurtured. No one could nurture me. No one could help me feel better other than the medical treatment and whatnot, but that's not an emotional thing, obviously. And then living an hour-and-a-half away, I guess from what I've come to understand, I was there for several weeks, obviously getting healed up, and there's probably many instances where I was alone in that room. My family had to go back and, sleep and shower and everything and come back. So I'm sure there was many times I was left laying in the bed, looking through little eye holes in my mummy outfit. What was I thinking then? Not little. So the healing technique with this process that I would, as I'm going through all this, about 18 people probably started coming through my head, rattling off a list, because as I headed into wanting to get into this for my own journey, I was coming off of behavioral things that I possess today, that I don't like, that I have, that are keeping me from ascending spiritually. three-dimensional things that are holding me back, and triggers with certain people in my life that are low vibrational on my part. So I'm kind of got stuck where I realized it's just time to keep peeling the layers of the onion back and find out where the cause of this is. So this early childhood trauma, among other things, some past life things are being revealed to me as well, but this is, you know, the one I'm on right now. So this is where a lot of things root from all of us. So as I see people close to me in my life, kind of everybody, I see behavioral things with everyone that are indicative of early childhood trauma. And so I'll kind of complete this bit of the process. This is kind of a early childhood trauma 101 therapy. So the method to heal ourselves with early childhood traumatic issues is to then picture yourself, and then what I was kind of guided into is putting myself on the beach. It's in the evening. There's a lot of beaches around here, so this is easy for me with the ocean. And having a fire going by the beach, nice and relaxing and healing. And then there I am, I'm my modern day self now, my present day self. And there I am as the little boy also sitting with me at the fire. So the idea is to hold that little boy for me and nurture him and give him the love and the comfort that he didn't get while he was going through this traumatic experience while I was as the little boy. So that's something to continue to dive into over and over and over again moving forward for me, is to try to continue to comfort and nurture myself. As a lot of the behavior that I have and the way I interact with certain people, romantic relationships and whatnot, have been indicative of that, where I lack components of self-love. I know I talk about that a lot, but it's pretty interesting to see in myself and so many people are lacking the same thing. So that's happening. So as I came out of the final session of this, my friend guiding me through it, literally within a minute of that, 3 people were blowing up my phone, wanting to get together and talk about certain things in their lives that are specifically related to their behavior and their things that go back to early childhood trauma for them. So I realized as that was going on, and then continuing on for about the next week and a half, about, I'd say 8 or 9 people have come to me and wanting to engage in early childhood trauma therapy, if I was to call it something. They just want to engage. They want me to help heal and guide them through similar things for themselves. And a lot of these are, actually all of them so far, except for one, I guess, are all women, and they have early child, adolescent sexual abuse and abandonment type things, kind of hand in hand. A lot of these things are just deeply rooted. Some people have these buried deep and they're suppressing them, I've noticed. Other people have them bubbling up to the surface right now and are causing day-to-day emotional problems. So the point with this is, as this is happening with me, I realize that as I'm vibrationally synced up to different people in my life, we're like a cosmic spider web that's all connected, multi-dimensional. And I've learned spider webs all have their own frequency they vibrate at, and they attract things to that frequency. And so as my frequency is vibrating at a certain point, other people that are floating around my life in different areas, as their frequency aligns with mine, we're drawn to each other for healing, most typically, and loving and growing with each other. So that's where I've been for the last couple weeks, is busy almost every day interacting with people with these issues that they need healed. And I'm blown away and thankful that I'm able to be someone trusted to help people with these issues. One thing that's come out of this now, that's kind of part 2 what I wanted to talk about with Mindy over there, we'll get to that in a minute, is with the new earth energy coupled hand in hand with this early childhood trauma stuff, divine feminine is on the rise. And for the last 2,000 so odd years, as the age of Pisces did its thing, and we're now in the beginning of the age of Aquarius, women's divine feminine power has been suppressed for 2,000 years. And if you really think about this, even within the suppression of that, women are way more powerful than men, way more complex. The male-dominated societies that we have that are about fighting and conquering and power and ego and all this bullshit has all been while men have been keeping women's power suppressed. But at the same time, men are leaning on women for their own power, even though they don't admit it. Most of the big rulers in the world have had some wise woman next to them, guiding them privately and sharing their wisdom. So that's interesting. That's been historically what's going on. Well, here we are now in the new age. We're in it. The age of Aquarius is upon us, and all around me, divine feminine is rising. And not everybody. Some people are still fighting the demons of their own trauma and suppressing them rather than tapping into them. And I'll tell you this: it is not fucking fun, and it's scary as shit to dive into your things and unearth them, because you're reliving the trauma and you're experiencing it all again, and not really on deeper levels. Maybe if it's been suppressed, especially something early childhood, you never really experienced it. You just got in protective mode and set it aside. So what I'm experiencing and seeing all around me is divine feminine, and it's an internal thing. It's not like hate men, women's rights, and all that bullshit. That's still all archaic, old earth energy and doesn't have a place moving forward. Divine feminine is coming from within women, from all sorts of places inside spiritually, and they're stepping into their power, and it's not aggressive. It's beautiful and it's strong. And everything's changing right now, so we're gonna get into some of that here in a few minutes. Or just talk away. This is a pretty swampy wetlands thing. I can't believe I've lived here all these years. I've never come over here. It's right here too. Blackberry season. So I was telling you some things that I was experiencing from the way different people have been interacting with me the last few weeks about early childhood trauma and becoming involved in it themselves and engaging with me, helping to guide them or whatever. And I noticed with a couple of people in particular, as they got courageous enough to dive into this and started to unearth it, which is very bold and painful. It's not a little thing. It takes a lot of guts, because it's just reliving all these things and embracing it. But the healing is in experience. Human nature wants to protect ourselves, so we set these things aside so we don't have to feel the pain. But the healing is in the pain, so it's interesting. So anyway, when they're doing this, these two other women in particular that I thought of, and you as well, because this is a cool thing. You have your own story going on right now. But both of them, I noticed, they stepped into their own power. And there's a couple things like divine feminine power and divine masculine power. We all have, male and female energies in us, regardless of the gender that we are. But I noticed as both of them in particular stepped into their own divine feminine power, I realized a couple things were going on as they both shared their stories intimately in long detail, like hour-long conversations. What they were doing is they were shedding off the divine masculine power that they'd been using as a protective measure. So I've learned recently, watching all of this, what happens is our divine masculine nature is the protective thing, at least for women is concerned. Women are feminine, but so when they put up walls. When women put up walls, they take on a more masculine characteristic. Sometimes you can actually see it in their physical appearance, but it's definitely in the behavior. It's more of a guardian kind of thing. As both of these women healed and were able to move away from the masculine protective things and let the divine feminine energy come up from within them, they began to look more feminine, and all of a sudden they just looked younger. They were glowing. Both of their faces began to just look different, and it was really hard to articulate as I was engaging with them and seeing that, but I'm like, wow, you just look different. And then we discovered through these conversations that they're stepping into their own power. So, and I've done that recently too. A few months ago I stepped into my own power just as a man, the masculine power. But you had some cool things I've noticed in the last month with you, where you've really stepped into your own your own thing, which is something I haven't seen in really ever. It's like a new you just showed up in the world. It's pretty interesting.
I think becoming pregnant has something to do with it too.
Yeah? How so?
Just a new wave of energy that I felt, and just some dreams, very lucid dreams I've been having.
Really?
Very lucid, sometimes unreal lucid.
Yeah.
And then just I started realizing the messages in those dreams about some things that I haven't dealt with, and now with being pregnant, I feel like some of it's coming to surface a lot more.
Yeah.
Just some past things I
Well, you've got plenty of trauma in your past too.
Yeah.
You don't have to get into now, but it's all they all relate to each other,
Yeah. I think it was just more of what I was talking about earlier, accepting what's kind of happened to me and realizing accepting is kind of the first part of it. Some people go straight to healing, but they haven't accepted that part yet of what's happened to them, so they still battle it and push it away while trying to heal, and it's like a battle with themselves and in their head.
Wow.
And I had to learn to accept it first and then heal, and then I started noticing I started doing less things to mask it. Also being masculine, like I was very competitive, angry. I wanted to be better than like everybody else to prove that I was strong and tough.
Yeah.
Like, but not really saying it out loud. But that's what I was doing subconsciously to seem tough to people. And then I realized it's okay to show your real feelings, and it's okay to let those walls down around people that you feel comfortable with.
To become vulnerable.
Yeah, and it's actually I noticed a beautiful thing, like to become that.
Okay, that's a good way to put it, because I noticed a change in you in the last month. I've shared with people what's gone on with you in the last few weeks. A few people anyway, now a lot of people, but you've embraced this pregnancy as a catalyst for you, or among other things, energetic shifts and different things in you. But it's like you're standing tall in your power, and you're not making demands or threats or anything like that. I can just tell you're like, this is what's going to happen, and whoever wants to come along for the Mindy ride is going to be on the ride with me. If you're not, get the fuck off. And
Yeah.
it's not to push anybody away or do anything like that. It's just to stand tall on your own, which is a very feminine thing to do.
It's kind of doing what my soul needs is kind of how I see it, and how, I mean, I feel like different parts and people that come into it during this is like very important for my soul to heal in a way, and also grow. Some people may be here for a short time, I've realized, and then may go away. And some people I've come into in the last couple of years, even the relationship I am, has actually made me grow more into this woman that I've been becoming right now, and standing in my own shoes. And I feel like we meet people at a certain time for a reason.
Do you feel like, okay, do you feel like a lot of us, our human nature sometimes is to, as we mask the pain, we want a quick fix and want to feel better right now, like a short-term immediate comfort. We want to feel better, so there's something familiar, familiar behavior, familiar relational things, maybe going back to an ex or something, maybe time and time again, is a comforting thing. But you seem to have, like, you've done a lot of that, and as have so many people right now I know too are just doing it. It's interesting to watch, but I see you rising out of that now, like you're stepping out of that repeated pattern that it seems like it. I mean, do you agree that leaves you unsatisfied ultimately?
Yeah, because when my first marriage, I did that to satisfy other people because I was pregnant, and I did it for the wrong reasons and not for myself. And I realized I became so unhappy that it was affecting me being a mother and a person, and I just didn't want to do anything. And then all of a sudden, when I stepped into my power, and I was like, I told him, I can't be with you. It's not you. It's literally, I'm on a different life path. And my soul needs something different than what is here and given to me. It's not anything to do with a bad person or anything. It was literally my soul was like, this isn't for you right now. I had still more growing to do and appreciation and things to learn.
So what in that decision process to call it something were you doing that was different? Were you listening to more like intuition and just, or what?
I was following more my heart than my head.
Yeah.
Because I feel like my head was kind of my biggest demon. Because I was battling myself all the time with
Rationalizing.
my heart and my head. Yes, and trying to make it seem 3D.
Yeah.
And like, this is how it had to be. I needed the white picket fence. I needed the husband. I needed like this whole family thing, the Christian values, really. And then I realized, I was like, holy shit, this is not for me. Like, this isn't the end for me. And I was like, once I did that, I was like, wow, I'm like 22. I feel like I have so much more to do than just this right now. And then now in this new relationship that I'm in, I'm kind of embracing it and taking different steps than I've ever done in other relationships, actually, which is weird. That I have not like talked about or expressed about, like just saying, hey, being like listing boundaries.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is
not okay.
This is what, like, like I started respecting myself more because of past traumas. I was actually ashamed of myself, and so I hid in this little hole. I realized it never really came out, and had all these things that kept pushing me back down, and I let it. That was the weird thing. I let it happen, and then once I stepped into my feminine thing, I just like kind of just came out.
I'm really proud of you. Actually, I see a different you that hasn't been here before at all.
I feel more at peace.
That's powerful. So what do you feel now? Do you just feel powerful now?
It's not even power, it's just this bliss. Like this humble bliss that like you don't need to go out expressing to everyone, oh my God,
yeah,
I freaking did it.
Yeah.
You know, it's
it
like
just is.
You just smile at yourself and you're like, wow, this feels really good.
That's cool.
This is different. This is a blissful feeling. It was satisfying because I've accepted everything and I'm still healing. I feel like I have a long time to go, but it feels better. I'm actually smiling.
Yeah.
I can tell my eyes are happier. So it's
your energy's
nice.
different to be around you now. It's radiating. I just feel a lot of strength is just how I would describe it, just in being around you. And I've never felt that before. There's no victimization. You don't seem like you're putting band-aids on for temporary fixes. You're getting more to the heart of the matter and rising up. I mean, like the lotus flower out of the mud or whatever that whole thing is. But it's interesting for me to learn this, and for myself, I try to like reach into other people's things and fix them a lot or whatever, and just not a healthy thing for me. But I'm learning to watch people and let them go through their own processes, and they're either going to make the right choices or they're not. They're either going to embrace going through the muddy muck and mire bullshit as a learning process, and to wear the pain and feel and experience and navigate through it. And there's people, all kinds of ways to hold someone's hand through that if they want to do that. But if they don't want to do that, they want to like live in the shit, they're just going to be in a shitty mundane thing, and that's going to be it. They're going to feel better for a minute, but then it's just going to be very unsatisfying and settling. But to rise through that is incredibly powerful and freeing, I guess, really.
It is.
Do you feel
freeing.
lighter?
Yeah, and I feel like
like physically lighter?
Like more clear in my mind too.
Yeah.
It's not like just like jumbling around and like war with myself
Yeah.
all the time. I can just like sit there. I'm like, I'm okay. Like I can actually sit here in silence and be like, I'm okay. I'm not like freaking out, having anxiety as I used to.
Yeah.
I feel like this baby gave me more of like that confidence too, in a weird way, like that push. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a mother of 2 now.
Lots to come.
Yes.
Should we get the hell out of here?
Yeah.
Okay.